Supernatural Season 10, Episode 16, Painted Black, which is a very deceiving title. Seriously, with everything that happens in this episode, I don't get why it's called Painted Black. So in this episode, you get the stupid Rowena plotting stupid Rowena, then you get a stupid Monster of the Week episode, and then you get a stupid episode that barely has Sam and Dean in it. Oh, and then you get some stupid explanation that pretty much explains to you the fact that the Men of Letters is now ruined. Just like every character on the show, they now ruin a big group. One of the first few scenes of this episode has a guy with two faces. He's got, you know, what you see here, and then he's got a face on the back of his head. I'm just like, alright, it's Voldemort. Voldemort has somehow made his way into Supernatural, and they've managed to ruin Harry Potter now, too. And the Monster of the Week, that has got to be the worst Monster of the Week I have ever seen. Zero backstory, and the backstory, what they had for the Monster of the Week, completely sucked. That's the worst I've ever seen. And it's a shame because where there's really no plot in this season, or a plot that's really not that interesting, the Monster of the Week episodes are actually the most interesting episodes of the season. And quite frankly, this was the least interesting Monster of the Week episode that also incorporated the main plot into the episode, which didn't work well for the episode, so the episode wasn't good. I mean, at first, the Monster of the Week seemed interesting in this episode because of the way people were killing other people. There was like couple suicides within a couple weeks. Sam and Dean didn't even think that it was a monster killing people. They were like, I'm not too sure about this, which kind of was like, interesting. They're not really too sure. They're not really, you don't really see that too much from them. But when you introduce to us that the fact that the ghost is a nun named Isabella who fell in love with this guy named Piero, and he didn't love her back, so her father sent her to a convent to kind of cope with her grief, and then she killed Piero while he was in bed with another woman, that doesn't make any complete sense at all. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen on the show next to Charlie. Yes, I even think that that's worse than the Rowena storyline, and don't even get me started on the Rowena storyline. The whole Grand Covenant of Witches thing, where the fuck did that thing come from? Witches have no business being on Supernatural. The way that they're being portrayed this season, they were never a big factor into the Supernatural lore, and now all of a sudden they're like big. Why? I don't get it. All of the scenes revolving Rowena, the Monster of the Week, and Olivet in this episode, I was just like this. Holy shit, Jesse Eisenberg looks stupid as Lex Luthor. But even that's more exciting than this piece of shit. Seriously, what is Rowena's purpose for this whole season? She's just here to ruin Crowley and bring in another big bad that we don't give a shit about. I really hope Olivet is not the big bad. That would suck. And then somebody please tell me, what is the plot? We're 16 episodes in. I don't know. Honestly, you could say there's like 5 plot lines going on. You're like, yeah, the Grand Coven stuff, the Mark of Cain stuff, Cass's stuff, Metatron stuff, but it's like there's too much. It's like season 6, there's too much going on. But there's these stupid fans. IMDb message boards is like going crazy over what the plot is, and there's these crazy fangirls over there that are just like this. Actually, the main plot line of the season is the boys' personal demons. You don't really have to deal with the Mark of Cain or the Grand Coven. It's really their personal demons and how they're gonna get out of that. Bullshit. This is a show that gave us Lucifer back in the day, and they're giving us this now? Come on. Yes, I know, I've kind of been a little harsh on the fans of the show and the writers of the show, but the writers are just feeding the fans because the fans of the show are ultimately like the toys from Batman and Robin. This season is ultimately the Batman and Robin of Supernatural. What I mean by that is that this episode proved to me that there's nothing relevant, and there's more to it than that. It also proves to me that the fans are pretty much like the Batman and Robin toys. By that, I mean that the fans are not a byproduct of the show. The show is a byproduct of the fans. And the same is said about Batman and Robin. The movie is a byproduct of the toys, but the toys aren't a byproduct of the movie. However, there is one thing I did like about this episode, and it's one of the few scenes that Sam and Dean are in. Actually, it's only a Dean scene, and he's at confession with the priest of the church. There's a scene with Dean where he's confessing to the priest, and he says this line. He's just like, I always feared that I was going to die doing what I do. And I feel that that time is approaching, and it's approaching fast, and there's no way I'm going to be ready for it. So when I die, and there's nothing I can do. Whenever that time comes, it's when that time comes. But I'm not going to be prepared. At that point, I was like, finally, the episode did something good. Finally gave some emotion to Dean for the first time since like season 7. I was like, you know what, Dean? For the first time since like season 7, I feel for you, man. Doesn't change the fact that 60% of the episode dealt with the Monster of the Week's stupid-ass, boring backstory, and the other 35% dealt with Rowena and her stupid Grand Coven bullshit with a fucking Olivette. 4.5% of the episode dealt with Crowley trying to, be weakened by his mother because, his mother's ruining Crowley. And then the other 0.5% dealt with Dean saying that line, and that was the only good part of the episode. Oh yeah, and by the way, the Men of Letters, yeah, that's now ruined. So the Men of Letters, they devastated the Grand Coven. Oh my god. Took them long enough, right? And then they managed to blunder and steal everything from inside the Grand Coven and hide it throughout other Men of Letters bunkers throughout the world. But the fact is, all the Men of Letters are dead, and the only two surviving Men of Letters are Sam and Dean Winchester. Yeah, now the Men of Letters has to be involved with the Grand Coven. I mean, you're finally picking up on that Men of Letters plotline that hasn't gone anywhere for the past 4 years, and you're finally giving them something to do. But at that, I say, give them something interesting to do. Don't have them steal from the Grand Coven. And Painted Black, yeah, by me not liking that episode, I thought that this was an episode where it's called Painted Black, Bring Back Demon Dean, even though there's really no point at this point, but hey, just to have him back, that would be cool. Only if he's written well, though. And then you get Crowley. Crowley captured Olivette, the leader of the Grand Coven, so that Rowena can practice her magic more freely. Turns out, stupid-ass Rowena turns Olivette into a hamster, so there's really no point of the Grand Coven or Olivette or Rowena, except for the fact that she can use magic now, and nobody gives a shit. Just saying. Which makes me upset because Rowena has now ruined Crowley even more. Guys, I knew this episode was going to be a Rowena episode going in, but I was hoping it wouldn't be this bad. This episode just sucked. And nothing good about it except for that one line Dean said. The Monster of the Week, the main plot were weirdly mixed together. It didn't flow very well. The Monster of the Week was very boring. The backstory was very boring. Olivette and Rowena's interactions weren't that cool. They were very boring. This whole episode, I was on my phone texting. I really didn't give a shit. The Grand Coven stuff was even more boring than I thought it was gonna be, even though I already knew it was gonna be boring. Rowena was made even more boring. She still can't pronounce her English words right. I like the fact that they gave the Men of Letters something to actually do, but the fact is it doesn't really matter because it's uninteresting stuff. It's boring stuff that you don't care about. However, that one Dean scene was pretty much the highlight of the episode, and I really thought that I was going to bullshit this episode after I just watched it, but I was like, nah, that Dean scene kind of saved it for me. However, I will say that Painted Black is a terrible episode, one of the worst of the season, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10, gives me, creeps. And quite frankly, if this was by my new ratings, yeah, it would fall under the category of, frankly, I just don't give a damn. So yeah. Honestly, I was hoping the teaser trailer for Spectre would be out this morning and not coming out at 4:45 so I could be like, what do I want to talk about? Spectre or Supernatural? You get my point? So what did you think of this past Wednesday's episode of Supernatural? If it bored the living shit out of you, or if you liked it to death, I don't care. I want whatever you thought. I want feedback, so drop me a comment in the comments section below. And for more news and reviews on movies, movie trailers, video games, and TV shows, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the big red subscribe button, and welcome to my world.